I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of social media trying to gaslight us all that being an it girl is inextricably linked to consumerism. This is unequivocally false, and please, whatever you do, don't fall for the BS. So, in today's video, we're going to break down what we're all truly yearning for, which is the confidence and authenticity that shines throughout so many it girls of the past. Before we begin, I have a quick disclaimer. I'm going to be looking at the it girl through the lens of fashion, as that's my primary interest and goal with this channel. I also want to emphasize that I know we romanticize it girls of the past like Jane Birkin or Kate Moss. And I want to really emphasize the fact that all of these public images that we know of these women of the past are still contrived. They're almost like a role or an act that they're playing. But I think the difference is the roles and acts that they're playing seem to suit them. It almost seemed in alignment. So even if it was a bit fake, it wasn't too far off from their reality, hence why it never seemed forced or contrived. And I think that's also really important because I don't want you to think that, oh, they were just being authentically themselves. No, they were still trying to push products, push a role, push some sort of brand or some sort of identity to the world that may not always have been in alignment with who they truly are. So it's important to have that level of media literacy when discussing it girls of the past and present. But I think what's most important in the differentiating factor that really stands out the most to me between it girls of the past and it girls of the present is the fact that a lot of it girls of the present are carbon copies of each other. I know recently there's been a lot of discussion regarding in New York City influencers and how they're all the same. It just seems like quote unquote it girls of the present are very much clones of each other, and there's no real level of individuality or no real level of personality or authenticity that's able to shine through. Again, I don't know if it girls of the past were just better actors or actresses so that they were able to pull off their quote unquote it girl role a bit better, or if they were just more in alignment with who they were authentically. But now everyone just wants to act the same and brand that as being an it girl, plus all the Amazon storefront products that you need to replicate what they are almost peddling. And I think that's what's so off putting to people. There's not even an effort put in to maintain and uphold a level of illusion or a level of authenticity. It's just very much Black Mirror, Stepford Wives adjacent content where it just seems like, they came out of an Amazon factory and they're just on a conveyor belt constantly being shoved on our feeds. With that disclaimer slash rant out of the way, let's jump into what actually makes an it girl an it girl. So, first and foremost, I believe that consistency, aka being an outfit repeater, is super, super important. Take Jane Birkin. She had her iconic straw bag that became such an iconic part of her lore, her identity, her fashion presence. It became an immediate signifier for her. Anytime anyone wears one, now it's reminiscent of what she established as something iconic in the fashion world. And it will always be associated with her. And I think having a signature piece, a signature accessory, a signature jacket, coat, headband, etc. Even when you look at Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, she had her signature headbands that she would frequently wear. Just something that makes it very much iconically you and iconically fabulous, and isn't always necessarily about pushing a brand, pushing a certain designer, luxury, aesthetic. It's about what feels authentic to you, what makes you happy, what sparks joy, maybe something that you got on a trip with really great friends, family, etc. And it reminds you of a certain period in your life, something that you have a connection to, and that authentically sparks joy within you, because honestly that's what makes an it girl an it girl. You can just tell that Jane Birkin was really happy with her straw woven bag. It just felt like something that she really loved. And I think that's something you can't fake. That's something that you can't emulate. It needs to be you. Moving on to something that I think is a forgotten art in today's social media landscape, and that is authentic imperfections. That means not having veneers, not having perfect teeth, not having perfect skin, not having perfect eyebrows, perfect hair, just a little bit of rawness, realness, just not too much perfect. I think we should start embracing more imperfections. And I think that's what a lot of the it girls in the past did. Even the 90s supermodel that we all, fawn over. It's very much this, yes, they're obviously insanely beautiful human beings, but there wasn't as much of an effort if you look back to cover moles, cover freckles, or wear heavy makeup or get insane Botox or lip filler. Again, I don't want to perpetuate a delusion. Of course, back then people were still getting plastic surgery, to be very, very clear. But I think it was in a way that still somewhat held true to their analog face, for lack of a better term, rather than now where everyone seems to be getting the same plastic surgery, going for the same type of look, trying to wipe out any form of quote unquote imperfections, hip dips, BBLs, etc. I just don't think there was as much modification, or rather extreme modification, as we see now. This concept also extends into the fashion of the it girl. A lot of pieces, especially within the 90s minimalism scope, but even Jane Birkin in the more 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of the pieces seem well loved, well cared for, and it doesn't seem like it's fresh off the rack, fresh off of, a Zara order. It has that worn feeling to it that kind of lends itself to that more authentic imperfection. And you can see, and Jane Birkin says constantly that she wanted to wear her Birkin bag into the ground. She wanted it to be used. She wanted it to have that level of functionality and practicality, that all the things that we own should serve in our lives. It shouldn't just serve to be a museum piece in our homes. They should be serving some sort of practical or functional purpose. It's just so important as an it girl, or as any girl, to really embrace the idea of wear and of imperfection, almost like the rings on a tree. Those are signs that time has passed, that things are of continuous use in your closet. And it shows that you really know yourself well if you're continuing to repeat and rewear things that you purchased, rather than constantly showing up in brand new things. Last but certainly not least, we have vintage/unique items. And I alluded to this in the previous section, but I think so many of the it girls of the past, including the iconic Miss Carrie Bradshaw, really embraced and loved vintage. I think that's where you can find the most unique, the most fun, the most well made items. And I think it speaks so much to that it girl factor, because it really differentiates, the quote unquote it girl from the rest of the crowd. I think that there's so much to be said for the tension that vintage items create, especially if you pair it with something maybe a little bit newer, say a vintage pair of jeans with a maybe newer Zara top. If you shop at Zara, that tension just gives it a little bit more edginess, more coolness. It adds more character. And I think that's what makes an it girl an it girl. It's not about always consuming, always buying the newest thing. It's about intentionality, it's about re-wearing, and I think that's what makes so many cool girls cool. And one of my favorite movies growing up was Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, played by the iconic Lindsay Lohan. And her character just had the coolest wardrobe. I feel like all her pieces were so fun, so unique, so funky, but also represented her and her journey throughout. I feel like each stage of the movie and each stage in her journey, each outfit throughout the different days really reflected how she was feeling or where she was at. And I just love that because I feel like fashion is a tool that is supposed to express how we're feeling and where we are in life. And also to note, she also continuously re-wore her iconic Coca-Cola necklace. And that also alludes to a previous section where I discussed re-wearing and being a consistent outfit repeater. So I think whether it be an item or even an accessory like jewelry, it's so important to continuously repeat and reuse. And I think that's the difference between current day, quote unquote, it girls or that girls. I just don't believe that anything found on an Amazon storefront is going to give you that it girl factor because it doesn't have that character, it doesn't have that uniqueness, and it's very much kind of giving factory conveyor belt, mass production vibes, which again, you can have newer pieces. But I do think that it's important to have that juxtaposition where you have something more vintage, unique, etc., to give a little bit more flair and character. So, in conclusion, being an it girl means being yourself, being authentic, having style, essence, character that's personal and authentic to you. And if you don't know what that is, get outside, get some life experiences, go through some trials and tribulations, and build the character. Like the tree, a sapling doesn't have any rings, but after time, the rings show its character, its authenticity, and all the things that make it unique and all the storms that it was able to weather and survive. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's honestly really true and can be applied to a lot of life. So, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys in my next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have an absolutely fabulous day. Bye.